It's time for our second panel of the day to discuss WEFE management, engineering and information technology aspects. So I'm passing on to you, Dr. Korpakis.
Thank you very much, Christo. Welcome back to our second panel on the legal, engineering, and information technology aspects for the WEFE management. Normally, we have three speakers, but at the moment, I see only one. I hope that the other two will be joining us um, quite soon. So, why we need a session like this? The complex nature of the issues underpinning the Nexus calls for relevant legal frameworks at international, European, and national levels. So, tackling the ways to manage the natural conditions surrounding the Nexus, especially water management, calls for special engineering approaches. Finally, we need data management and applications that are necessary for facing the issues. We have an excellent panel for tackling these questions that we would like now to briefly present to you. Since the first speaker that is present from this panel is Dr. Lidia Vavaker-Lerupia, I will present first. She's a senior researcher fellow at the KWR Water Research Institute in the Netherlands. Mrs. Vavakeridou is a former lecturer at the National Technical University of Athens, Greece, who was invited to Exeter in 2003 on sabbatical leave and then remained as research fellow at the Center for Water Systems. She is also a professional engineer with over 20 years of experience. Apart from research papers and books, she has published over 50 technical reports on research and engineering projects, while her computer models have been professionally applied to more than 100 irrigation and water supply networks in case studies in Greece. As soon as the two other speakers will be joining us, I will be presenting them. And I see that Professor Kostas Papanikolaou has joined us also for this second panel, who is actually very much welcome. So I will give now the floor to Dr. Vavakeridou for her presentation. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me here. As it was said, I'm an engineer on background, and also I'm specialized in hydroinformatics, which is the cross between hydraulics and informatics and computers. And I have been working in this domain for many, many years. I would like to start with the good things. When it comes to modeling, to engineering model of the Nexus, there have been many progress. There has been progress for in the last years. We have mathematical approaches which have been tried, for instance, system dynamics modeling with collaboration with Greek universities and Greek researchers, and they have been applied all over Greece. And also now we have also progress in visualization, creating serious gaming with the Nexus, and also now in artificial intelligence, looking into machine learning, reinforcement learning for decisions that are related to the Nexus. All these are positive things. I mean, in the domain of science, in the domain of computer modeling, there has been a lot of progress in the last 5-6 years, and also funded through European projects, and with very good results in terms of publications, in terms of scientific outputs. These are the positive things, and they have also application in Greece and Cyprus. But there are issues. There are gaps. And the gaps are not on the science side, the gaps are on the policy side at national and regional level related to the water, energy, food ecosystems nexus. Why do we have gaps? The first is that there are inconsistencies in the policies, inconsistencies also in the way the policies are implemented, and gaps in legislation. I mean, the science may say one thing, there are gaps in the legislation in implementing the things that the science are saying. And the lack of coherence also has an impact on the implementation of the Nexus, because if you have one policy, for instance, that promotes saving water and a different policy promotes energy saving, and those two are not coherent in what needs to be done in the Nexus, then you have two diverse policies, diverging also, which make issues for the implementation harder. The problems are more acute when we're talking about transboundary rivers and catchments. This is not the case for Cyprus so much, but it's very much the case of Greece, because we have rivers that start in another country and end up in Greece. And all those rivers are in the north of Greece. When it comes to transboundary rivers and catchments, there are further inconsistencies due to the different levels of implementation of the Nexus policies in the countries involved, because there is a different degree and a different orientation in Greece compared, for instance, to our northern neighbors. And this creates additional issues and challenges which we need to overcome. But there is help. There is help from Europe, because through funding, through framework directives, and also through various, I would say, initiatives that start from the Commission, which are related to funding schemes like PRIMA, or through the H2020, it was now Horizon Europe. They support this transboundary implementation of the Nexus. They transport research and implementation actions. They support also what we call the water diplomacy, which is very, very necessary if we want to do something for the Nexus for our country. And these are the main issues we have, which have less to do with technology and more to do about the legal and policy aspects.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vavakiriou. I think that was really interesting. Since we have some time, and I don't see our two additional speakers present, we still hope they will be joining. And I profit from the presence also of Professor Papanikolas. Since you have both talked about the issue of transboundary problems, and I think the solution is also close to transboundary issues too. What do you think? Where we are now? What is the progress that we have made specifically for Greece and maybe Cyprus in this particular area? Do you have some view on that?
I suppose the question is for me.
Yes.
Right. We have recently, 2 years ago, there have been projects, and I'm talking especially about the Nexogenesis project, which is funded by the European Union, and there are Greek partners participating, Greek universities and also Greek authorities and Greek other organizations. And we have also Bulgarians in it, and we're looking into the Nestos River. This is a paradigm that shows how we can promote the Nexus in this project, how we can promote water diplomacy, and how we can promote also the modeling. So there has been progress. There has been, but it's at a very, I would say, slow pace, because the level of social acceptance in both countries is different. And this type of projects tries to bring the countries together. And in this instance, for instance, we're working with the Nestos River, but there are more rivers that are transboundary in Greece, and they will need more projects and more funding and more cooperation and more water diplomacy in order to face the issues. For instance, we all know that Evros is the biggest problem, and not many things have been done for Nevros because it's also very sensitive when it comes to diplomatic issues.
Right. Can I also put the same question to Professor Papanikolas? Because I understand this is a different geographical setting for Cyprus, but nevertheless, the challenge remains the same.
You are muted.
You are muted. You have to activate your micro. Right.
Okay. It's okay now? Yes. Wonderful issues and excellent. I really enjoyed the presentation of Lydia. Cyprus, of course, being an island, is a very different story. The isolation presents big problems. For example, in the electric sector, the isolation does not allow penetration of renewables. The grid gets unstable because of fluctuations. Therefore, connection to other bigger grids brings stability, and that addresses the energy issue of in the WEFE. And as I said, there is these energy interconnectors. One of them is planned, big interconnector between the so-called Euro-Asia interconnector, Greece, Cyprus, Israel. And when it comes to water, already I discussed the possible connection to Turkey. But Cyprus is playing a very interesting role in bigger regional issues because of its position being an EU, the only EU country in the Middle East, where convening power is big. Especially the Cyprus Institute, in cooperation with the Cyprus government, we have been developing a very active program in hydrodiplomacy. Only 10 days ago, we had a big meeting with Israelis, Jordanians, Palestinians, and international experts to discuss this transboundary issue of sharing electricity and water, electricity from renewable sources in Jordan, desalinated water from Israel, to address the pressing issues of the very, very dire situation in the Jordan River Valley, an internationally known problem where all these issues are exacerbated. It's not like Greece and Bulgaria, where both in EU, there you have countries often at war. Also, in the hydrodiplomacy program we have been invited by the minister, and we are in contact with the Minister of Egypt of Water to see if we can, again, as a nice convening place, to see how we can inject some neutrality into the dialogue of Ethiopia and Egypt regarding the damming of the Nile, which, as you know, even there were threats of bombing the dam because it will, if it's not handled correctly, it has tremendous repercussions for the economy of Egypt. So it's not only what happens in Cyprus, but it's within the regional initiative I just mentioned. This hydrodiplomacy plays a very, very important role. To highlight how important this is viewed, I can tell you that about 9 months ago, I was called by the Pope to a private audience to understand this issue. He's really concerned. And for a half hour, he really wanted to understand how this WEFE Nexus will affect migration. That's what he's really concerned, because collapse of the agriculture in the Middle East, which is a likely scenario in the business as usual climate crisis scenario will lead to tens of millions of migrants at the minimum, is really keeping a lot of governments awake, especially in Europe. And the Pope, concerned about the migration issue, he really wanted to know how much we know about this and how reliable these forecasts are. So this is the importance, and this is where the Cyprus, but also Greece, can play a big role in the region to address these huge, of international importance, transboundary issues.
Let me please interrupt you. Hello from me as well. Thank you so much, especially you, Professor Papanikolas, who is kindly now to remain for the second panel. Professor Diplas most probably used the test meeting. So, Professor Diplas, if you please send us a question to be able to invite you on stage. And everyone else, since we have this technical, Professor Zacharoula Andreopoulou had a problem, most probably. So you are all welcome. We have the ability to invite you on stage if you wish to comment or something, or say something, or whatever. But for Professor Diplas, please ask a question to be able to go to Q&A so I can invite you on stage. You have lost your...
But in the meantime, can I put
Please,
another
Dimitri,
question?
please, Dr. Korvakis, please go on.
Because the session is also about information technology aspects.
Sure.
So I know that Dr. Vavakiridou is an expert on computer modeling. How do you think, how reliable are the computer models for this for this issue? And second, because data, as you know, as we all know, is the is the oil of today for most economies. And because I also seen a question in the chat about social acceptance, and I would like also to make a connection to what we call citizen science. So I'm pretty sure we can actually involve society more on how we can really improve the interconnections between the issues on the Nexus and make people more aware, make society more aware and cooperating to advance the issues of the Nexus. Thank you.
This is a multiple question. Let's start on the scientific side. On the scientific side, there have been a lot of advances recently, as I said, through artificial intelligence mostly, which are extremely good and extremely promising, but also more classical approaches through system dynamics. And we have a group of our scientists in Greece from various organizations which are trained on this, and this is progressing. Social acceptance is a very, very, very important issue. You cannot apply any policy that has to do with the Nexus that without the social support, without people understanding what this is about. For this, we have various ways to approach through engagement, through focus groups, through what we call multi-stakeholder fora, through what we call system innovation, which we're doing in Asinoe, through living labs, through all those instruments, which are mostly social sciences. When it comes to the technology helping, there have been serious games developed, for instance, for the Nexus, where it gives the opportunity to the end user, which may be a simple citizen or a student or a decision maker or a policymaker, to understand what will happen with different scenarios in the future. And these are based with a backward engine that simulates the system, and then with visualization tools that help the user to understand. Recently, we have also started with virtual reality and augmented reality to try to approach and explain to people what is happening. And this is happening, for instance, in the Arsinoe project, but also in another project which I'm involved as Exeter, because I'm still with the part-time affiliation with the University of Exeter, through the wider projects, which are for increasing capacity in various countries, including all the Balkans. But citizen science is also something that we have not fully exploited for the Nexus. It has a lot of potential because it gives the simple citizen also the possibility to be an active member in the collection of information, in the collection of data, which can be used by the scientists later. In the Arsinoe project, which I mentioned, and which is coordinated by the University of Thessaly, we are using both virtual reality and citizen science in various cases, also in Greece, to try and engage people and make them understand how, for the resilience to climate change, for instance, the Nexus considerations are very, very important. So this is a whole aspect which we can explore. When it comes to data alone, Europe is promoting the European data spaces. That's a very serious initiative, and it will come to us in the following years. We are working that will be for data exchange, there will be standardization of the way the data are exchanged, the way your data fusion of data can take place, and this is promoted by the Commission, and those are the nascent European data spaces which thematically are now being developed. With pleasure, I would like to say that Greek universities are part of it. There are projects, and Greek universities, Greek research centers are participating in this development.
Thank you. That was very, very helpful. Okay, I see we have now Professor Diplas that is requesting to...
Actually, he can't, and no, the problem is on the platform. Of course, he joined from a different link at first. The problem is that I cannot invite him on stage. I can invite everyone else, but I cannot invite Professor Diplas. This is crazy.
Maybe you can send him again the link to connect.
I have said it because that's how he entered. But we are on a live stage, on a live session, and we are not. He can hear us, but
that's
cannot
a real
join.
pity. That's a real pity. Thank you very much.
I may give his presentation, and you can narrate it, Dimitris, or.
Well, I can try, but
In the meantime, if you wish, I will try again. You may ask, Ms. Gardikiotti may ask a question to our
yes, of
speakers,
course.
and
Of course.
we can.
Mrs.
I will try
Gardikiotti,
to.
you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I am just realizing that the entrepreneurs are missing from this meeting. I really want to ask the question of what kind of facilitation would entrepreneurs have in Greece in order to use your Nexus to have to advance and to make possible projects that they are piloting. All that you are saying. I'm leading an effort in revitalizing a small village in Greece, and I need people like you. Question: how would I be able to do that? What is the best way of approaching? What is a facilitation for this thing to happen in reality in Greece? Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. If I may, first of all, I would like to give the opportunity to our speakers to try to answer this question, and then I can probably add a few things from my experience.
I can answer directly on this. there has been and is ongoing an initiative by the Commission called the Mission for Climate Change. If you Google it online, you can find it. So the Mission for Climate Change addresses all the issues that have to do with adaptation to climate change. And the participators are regions, communities, and local authorities. Greece is participating. We have already about 10 or 15 communities in Greece, from small to big, which are part of the mission call. Once a community becomes a member of the mission, we have overall at the moment over 300 communities and regions that have joined. There is a number of instruments which are available, from networking, which is the most, I would say, easy to understand, to platforms like the Climate Adapt, to access to various instruments, to training, and to facilitation coming officially from the Commission for small communities to join in projects, to join in initiatives, to get funding, to get aligned with the different policies and initiatives of the Commission. So my very strong advice would be for this community that are interested in to join the mission and the regions that are linked to the mission. They have events, they have online events, they have various material to update, and also they offer the opportunity to link with others in Europe and help you in whatever you want to do.
I don't know how to thank you. Thank you very, very much. I already have
Look for the mission for adaptation to climate change from the Commission, and you'll see that.
I already have it on my Google. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. I appreciate.
Okay, Professor Papanikolaou, would you like to add something to this question?
No, this was an excellent answer. I think covers everything. That's the way to begin, and there are so many leads from there that I think it's totally covered by.
Right. Maybe I could add from my side very briefly that at the moment there are myriads of opportunities for entrepreneurs to take part in the projects, because there are so many initiatives that will be coming out, first from the Framework Program for Research and Innovation, and second from the European Structural and Investment Funds, and then, of course, from the European Recovery and Resilience Facility. You just have to follow what happens and talk to the appropriate people, follow all the announcements, and you'll get there. Actually, the Commission is full of information, so much that you cannot even follow sometimes. We have already a few questions in the chat, especially to Dr. Vavakeridou by Mrs. Panethimitakis, who asks about the risk of having climate-sensitive infectious diseases, especially waterborne diseases. Is there any risk for something like this? Because apparently people are very much afraid of what happened with COVID, and so they want some reassurance.
Well, I'm afraid I cannot give you reassurance. I can increase the risk, because the main issues we have with the transboundary rivers is water quality. For instance, any type of toxic material which is dropped in the river in another country ends up in Greece. And this creates additional risks. So the WEFE Nexus in the transboundary rivers of Greece has water quality as a major issue, because it's also a legislation issue. It's also implementation of this legislation. That's one side of it. The second side of it is that waterborne diseases, with the increase of temperature, which we are expected on average, and also with the extreme events like extreme drought or also extreme flooding, which is another risk, are bound to increase. And we are looking into this. There are a lot of projects, again, that look into the potential hazards that come with through water quality and the decrease of water quality. And that's not just for the pandemic, but also we have challenges that come from new pollutants, emerging pollutants, as we call them, for instance, microplastics or the PFAS, as they call them. And this is I would say, a domain of research that has to do with water quality and the propagation of those pollutants through groundwater and the rivers, which still Greece has started participating in similar projects. And the big utilities, for instance, in Athens and Thessaloniki, but it's not widespread. Other countries, like, for instance, the Netherlands, have done a lot of research on this and a lot of, I would say, preventive actions, but which is a domain on these emerging pollutants that Greece needs to do more, although we have started. So yes, there are issues. Yes, there are dangers. Yes, we don't know too much about it. And for Greece specifically, I would say that more needs to be done. Cyprus is also a different story. They have done some very interesting advances when it comes to the hazards from pollutants in rivers, especially with the first responders and the reactions through the University of Cyprus. For instance, I'm referring to the PathoCert project, which they are coordinating, and Greece also in Thessaloniki is participating in this, but not coordinating. So these are projects which are groundbreaking because they're looking into the issues and how to face the issues of the hazards that come through waterborne risks.
If I may add.
Yes, yes, please. Please go ahead.
In addition to the ones in the water, let's say, channel, major risks in health do exist because of climate change, and they are being studied. One of the most well-studied is because of the rise of temperature. Vector-borne diseases, most commonly mosquito transmitted, but there are other vectors in addition to mosquitoes, are moving to countries and areas where they didn't exist before. This is well modeled and understood to a degree. Greece, for example, and certainly Cyprus, we all are aware, for example, that there are new types of mosquitoes, new diseases that didn't exist before, let's say West Nile disease, but also incidents of are forecasted of vector-borne diseases that we know only from literature. They are in Latin America or India. They will move northward, up. The models show up to Great Britain, and they pose a threat to the health of the society, which is anticipated with the modeled temperature rises. Recently, workshop and the publication, I can list the reference, was done by the European Sciences Scientific Advisory Council, ESAC, together with the Cyprus Academy and the Cyprus Institute, which documented and referenced the threats to the Eastern Mediterranean, Middle East. It's worth reading. And therefore, climate change will have, to summarize, very severe impacts on health threats that to a degree are understood, but not being addressed.
Okay, I'm told now that we can actually extend a little bit our timing because of these connection difficulties. And you will probably have the presentation of Professor Diplas. Just to introduce him, he's the PC Rosen professor of Civil and Environmental Engineering Department at Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, in the United States. Professor Diplas joined Lehigh in 2013 as department chair and served in that capacity until 2020. Prior to joining Lehigh University, he taught at Virginia Tech for 23 years and at the National Technical University of Athens for 2 years. In 1999, he founded the Baker Environmental Hydraulics Laboratory and served as its director for 14 years. More recently, he renovated and expanded the Environmental Hydraulics Laboratory at Lehigh into a state-of-the-art facility. His work has been recognized by a number of awards, including the National Science Foundation Young Investigator, Hans Albert Einstein, Hunter Rouse Hydraulic Engineering, and the Carl Emil Hilgard Hydraulic Prize. During the spring semester of 2007, he was the J. Brown Intertech Visiting Professor at the University of Minnesota. So I understand the presentation will be given by Theo. Theo, you have the floor. So do you want me to expand on this?
Go on. If you wish, you can go on. Otherwise,
Yeah, maybe it's better
please.
since you have the presentation, you can control it better.
All right. Okay. Let me please share again my screen.
Put it in full screen, better.
Sure.
Right, now it's better.
I'm so sorry for this trouble. Most probably he jumped to the test link, the test session, but it seems that the system blocks him from getting in touch us at the backstage in this session. In the meantime, if you hear me, please, Professor Diplas, try to join try to reboot and join again to have the pleasure to have you after this presentation. So I'm going to follow your presentations. You start with some insights from Adequity, WEFE Nexus, climate change resilience, and holistic versus piecemeal approach. There are mountains in Attica which can now keep nothing but bees, but which were clothed not so very long ago with fine trees producing timber suitable for roofing the largest buildings, while the country produced boundless pasture for cattle. The annual supply of rainfall was not lost, as it is at present, though it being allowed to flow over a denuded surfaced to the sea, but was received by the country in all its abundance into her bosom, where she stored it. Who says that? Critias of 5th century before Christ. Sustainable welfare Nexus for sustainable development. The important elements employ an experienced multidisciplinary system, a team, involve stakeholders, bottom-up approach, citizen science that Professor Vavakeridou, Dr. Vavakeridou said before, something that we love of the Greek Scientist Society, and we would love to have something working together on this stage. Critical to the development and success of suitable measures, minimize changes of original landscape, like this. Pursue nature-inspired solutions, enable adaptive capability to climate change, establish a good monitoring system to collect data over many years following project completion. We've said the importance of IT and the data, big data. It's an area that we can use in here. Challenges, large-scale modeling, watershed-based approach, and plethora of phenomena occurring over a wide range of spatial and temporal scales. Resilient WEFE Nexus. WEFE Nexus, sustainability has to be resilient, ability to prepare for threats, to absorb impacts, and to recover and adapt after disruptive events. e.g. extreme conditions, more extreme conditions. We already faced them. Use of extensive monitoring system, cyber infrastructure, with the capacity to provide data in real time. Adopt a big picture approach. Start with a holistic conceptual framework consistent with the important features of the project's needs and objectives. Then incorporate the pertinent pieces, top down, in here. Use an agent-based modeling, problem-solving environment, and or other appropriate solution methods. Visualize outcomes of what-if scenarios. I believe that I couldn't deliver what Professor Diplas had to share with us. I'm so sorry for this trouble. Professor Andreopoulou most probably had similar issues. We are people, and things happen like that all the time. Professor is hidden from the stage. All right, let me see. Okay, Dimitri, the stage back to you. Sorry, I'm trying
Okay,
to.
no, thank you very much for
I have to organize all of
giving the presentation of Professor Diplas. I understand he has given the focus to issues like holistic approaches, natural-based solutions, computer modeling. I liked very much what he put in the first slide, showing that the problems are not new and they probably come in cycles. It was very impressive to see this part from Critias, from Plato, for the mountains of Attica at the time, and so it gives us some hope for the future. So I don't know if we have any hope to have Professor Andreopoulou, who is actually caught, I understand, in some teaching problems because she has been caught in her professional occupations, obligations. So I think we can probably round up this panel. We had another question. I don't know if somebody wants to respond to that, but it is actually very much linked with what we have been talking about the previous issues about citizen science and social acceptance. Mr. Paleologos asks if we can how we can convince people that whenever they use their car, for example, they accelerate, they make the problem even worse. Now, again, this is an issue that has to do with raising social awareness. And I think that everything we said in this panel can really help to improve this situation. So I think we have now reached the end of our second panel. I'm pretty sure you have all appreciated the wealth of the interventions of our speakers and hope the debate. But let me close this by reminding everybody that we have still a very long way to go before pretending that we addressed even the problem. Last Monday, March 20, the world's leading climate science body, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, summarized 5 years of its research with a stark warning that by the middle of the next decade, it may be too late to avoid a cycle of climate-induced disaster that will be far more serious than anything happening already across the globe. The report is a clarion call to massively fast-track climate efforts by every country and every sector and on every time frame. That was what the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said. In short, our world needs climate action on all fronts, ladies and gentlemen, and we need it now. So I would like to thank our speakers for their contributions, as well as you, our audience, for all your participation and active involvement. And over to you, Christos, for closing this session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Papakis, now the time has come to draw the conference to an end. Thank you everyone for joining us today and making this exchange of ideas possible. We look forward to seeing you in our next Greek Scientist Society conference. Please stay tuned and continue to support our initiative.